One thing the ninja's famous for, I want to point out, is what is known as the death touch. The ability to hit someone, leave no bruise, no mark whatsoever, and yet kill them, or let them die hours later.
This sounds like a James Bond movie, you realize.
Well, the ninjas were the James Bonds of Japan.
Hi, Napoleon here. It's come to my attention that some viewers were deeply offended by the loud rock music used in the intro to Fake Martial Arts Part 1. To those people, I want you to know that I'm listening and I care. Did you know that Steven Seagal once tried his hand at making Jamaican dancehall music? You didn't? Well then, for the remainder of this intro, please enjoy the Steven Seagal dancehall classic, Strut. I hope you will find the mental image of a 70-year-old Seagal sweating profusely while grinding up against an unwilling dance partner and mumbling, "Me want the punani," less offensive than heavy metal. Thank you.
Mr. Steven Seagal, fly down to Jamaica and say one, the baddest girl. So them send for Lady Stark, I don't know me raw. You see me? So
girl, what you really want down there?
me want the body if you make me feel nice. Why? Tell me what you really want all night.
Me want the bananas if you make me nice.
Me want the body, him want the punani. I mean know it nice. So
when the girls start to strut, you could look at their butt, you shouldn't do that. The girl dress is just a pity, not just there to cover her kitty.
when me a fling it up, you better know fi back it up. When me a dash it up, make sure you black it up. If you ever flap it up, then me a go lock it up. Park it up like Benji hold up. So me want the body if you make me feel nice. Why? Tell me what you really want all night.
Me want the bananas if you make me nice. Me love the way you walk, sometimes the way you talk is so hot. Now you know, let's have a shot of rum. Then me can make you come with me to the ocean. That would be
Ashida Kim, Count Dante, George Dillman. What is the connective tissue that links the worst trilogy of human beings since Hansen? Is it their affiliation with the world-famous secret ninja club, the Black Dragon Fighting Society? Or the fact that they all look about as combat-ready as Mr. Bean? The common denominator for the most famous shit peddlers of the 70s and 80s ninja magic era of martial arts is that they all tried to convince their students that they had supernatural abilities. Ashida Kim wanted you to believe he was capable of levitation, invisibility, and that he had totally had sex with a girl, but she goes to a different school than you, so you probably don't know her. Count Dante wanted you to believe that he could kill you not just by dynamiting rival dojos, but with a poison hand technique, the death touch, the dim mak. And George Dillman, well, poor old George just wanted to feel included, so he told everyone he had psychic abilities. But in the immortal words of Nate Diaz, George snitched on himself and told everyone the cheat code to nullify his mind powers.
If I say I'm going to knock you out, and you raise one toe and push one toe down, can't knock you out.
But what happens when a fraudster tries to convince you into believing something much more down to earth? How about they skip all the psychic shit and just try and convince you they're a real fighter? This is the curious story of Rafiel Torre. Torre first came to the attention of combat sports fans due to his MMA journalism in the early 2000s, the primordial soup of MMA. Torre was one of the most prolific combat sports journalists of that era, covering almost every event imaginable, from King of the Cage to really obscure shit like Tachi Palace fights. His articles were published on what were pretty much the only MMA sites on the entire internet at the time, MMA Underground and ShareDog, meaning that every fight fan hardcore enough to browse ShareDog or post on their forums in the early 2000s likely knew the name of Rafiel Torre. But Torre wasn't just a journalist. He was a karate instructor, BJJ black belt, King of the Cage competitor, unsanctioned illegal Kumite champion, and held an undefeated 14-0 record in no-holds-barred backyard pit fighting. And if you're finding it a little hard to swallow all of that information, you're probably a bit too young to remember that once upon a time there was no such thing as Google. The internet only existed on computers roughly the size and price point of a second-hand Tesla.
You'll learn how the net can entertain you and take you to far-off locations.
You like watching people get fucked for free?
In the proto-internet era, people could concoct backstories more fantastical than the wizarding world of Harry fucking Potter without it being debunked in seconds via a Google search. In 2001, I even managed to convince an entire internet chat room that this was me. And it worked for years. The early 2000s were also a very different landscape for MMA. Far from the slickly packaged, 100% pure yet completely sterile product Dana White is slinging in 2022, the olden days of MMA in America were cut with all manner of unknown substances. MMA was being pushed underground thanks to John McCain's crusade against human cockfighting, and Dana White's texts were left on read by TV stations and pay-per-view alike, effectively shadow banning the UFC from any form of promotion. Illegal fights were held at Native American reservations, and fighters like Nick Diaz were taking part in bare-knuckle matches in high school gymnasiums. In an era where all was formless chaos, it's not difficult to see how a guy who was a respected part of the MMA landscape thanks to his journalism could also claim to be an undefeated pit fighter and have that claim go unchallenged. But Torre hadn't maxed out his bullshit stat yet and poured in another few points by also claiming he was a former Navy SEAL and that despite being whiter than a 1980s dog turd, he was somehow also Brazilian. He also claimed his dad was a judo black belt who had trained with the Gracies. It's unconfirmed as to whether Torre claimed his dad could beat up your dad, but it's safe to assume he did. Torre's web of lies began to untangle when he met the founder of the Abu Dhabi Combat Club, Sheikh Tanoun bin Zayed Al Nahyan. For anyone unfamiliar, the ADCC is a grappling tournament founded in Abu Dhabi in 1998 and considered by most to be the most prestigious grappling competition in existence, boasting competitors such as Renzo Gracie, Demian Maia, Jean-Jacques Machado, and in 1998, after blowing enough smoke up the Sheikh's ass to turn him into a human hot air balloon, Rafiel Torre. In his match at ADCC, Torre was submitted in under a minute by a competitor named Bo Hirschberger. Hirschberger made Torre look like he had never grappled a day in his life.
Foreshadowing is a narrative device in which suggestions or warnings about events to come are dropped or planted.
Torre returned to the world of MMA journalism and cultural appropriation with his black belt tucked between his legs. While the loss at ADCC was embarrassing, it wasn't enough to ruin his reputation outright, as some black belts are just that much better than others that it was plausible that Torre had just been steamrolled by a much better grappler before he could get off any kind of offense. He remained an important part of the MMA landscape of the early 2000s, but rumours that his black belt claims were more fraudulent than a pair of synthol biceps dogged him like a hostile NPC. In an attempt to try and regain some credibility, Torre announced he was unretiring from a job he had never had in the first place and making his MMA comeback.
You've read his articles on the internet, you've seen his photos on the internet, you've seen him at the King of the Cage, but now you're seeing him come out of retirement with a record of 14-0 in no-holds-barred fighting. Standing 6 feet tall, weighing in at 195 pounds. Please welcome to the cage, the ever-impressive Mr. Rafiel Torre!
Torre made his debut comeback at King of the Cage 25, Wet n Wild. And just a couple of notes about King of the Cage here. The Wet n Wild event was appropriately named as it was the only MMA event in living memory held outdoors in a rainstorm. I'm not quite sure of the logic behind this. I can only assume it was a bath salts fueled fever dream by whoever was in charge of King of the Cage's booking, but every match devolved into an MMA slip and slide.
He's slipping all over the place right here.
Yeah, he did. That was not a takedown, it was a fall. Basically, that was a slip.
And Bruce Buffer announced every match while wearing an overcoat, like he was getting ready for an 8:30 res at Dorsia, but forgot he had one last fight to announce. Also, King of the Cage has over 500 events and has individually named every single one. Once the event numbers started hitting triple digits, the UFC realized there were only so many permutations of the words fist, undisputed, warfare and power, so they gave up and just stuck with numbering their events. But King of the Cage is ruthlessly committed to this bit and has produced 500 plus events, such as Raw Deal, New Blood, Heavy Trauma, Most Wanted, Hazard Pay, Warp Speed, Fallout Tactics, Brotherhood, Equalizer, Unchallenged, Social Distortion, Violent Confrontation, Ceaseless Discharge, Counterpunch, Thor 2, The Dark World, National Dispute, Generation X, Turf, Extreme Horsepower, Velocity, Full Speed, Territorial Conflict, Demolition 2, Aggressive Lifestyle, Future Legends 41, Hard Knock 3, Perennial, Impending Attack, Highlight Reel, Grand Finale, No Retreat, Under Siege, Anger Management, No Escape, Future Legends 40, Energetic Pursuit, Pervade.
Jet-powered, the monkey navigated, and it goes on like this.
Back at King of the Cage 25, in the worst attempt at forcing a beef since that time DC and Alexander Gustafsson bickered about Halo 5 over Twitter, Torre tried to make out that, for some ill-defined reason that was never really made clear, there was bad blood between him and his opponent, Ioka Tianu.
He's coming out of retirement. He's putting his undefeated record on the line. Right. Is there a little bad blood going on between the two of you? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, you know, there's a little shit talking here and there, you know what I'm saying? He wants to take me to the cage. Hey, man, I'll bring it, you know what I'm saying?
Is there more to this fight than meets the eye? Is there a little bad blood?
Yeah, a little. There's a lot of bad blood. There's a lot of bad blood. I figured, you know, if I was going to ever come out, it'd have to be for a good reason, and I'd want to do it in a good show, and I figured King of the Cage was the best show in the U.S., and this guy gave me some good reason. A lot of bad blood. I don't really want to go into it here. I want to do it in the ring. I want to finish it in the ring with him, you know, and maybe give him a little beat down, teach him a little bit of a lesson, and show him that, you know, that I'm not the guy you want to mess with.
With the beef well and truly room temperature, the fight was on. Torre versus Tianu was about as convincing as Connor's nice guy McGregor act.
But the respect is admirable for this man from me.
Not only a little bitch of a thing, a silly little hillbilly.
After a couple of comical slips due to the soaking wet canvas, Tianu rolled over and threw his legs in the air like a jaded hooker and proclaimed, "Gee, I sure hope no one knee bars me." Torre proceeded to apply what could possibly be identified as a knee bar if you watched it in 360p on a Nokia 3310, while Tianu tapped out faster than someone mashing buttons while playing Halo 5. Jesus, I hope DC got paid well to debase himself like that.
Rafiel, now is the grudge put to rest?
Yes, it's totally done. He hit me hard, and I got him back a little bit too, so I think we're even.
Okay, so now, are you going to continue in mixed martial arts, or will you now retire again?
Hell no, these young guys coming up hit too damn hard, they're too fast, they train too much, I'm too old. I'm gonna go pro wrestling, and we don't have to suffer for real.
If Torre was expecting his first ever recorded fight to act as some kind of physical record of certified badassery, something that would make the MMA community at large nod their heads in sage agreement that, wow, this guy is legit after all, he was wrong. Like the amorous adventures of Ishida Kim levels of wrong. Instead of legitimizing him in the eyes of the MMA community and convincing everyone he must really be a Brazilian Navy SEAL undefeated pit fighter, the incredibly suspicious nature of his win just sped up the collapse of the Rafiel Torre cinematic universe.
Around December, I heard Rafiel was coming out of retirement.
He was fighting one of his old students. It was a vendetta.
And I went out there to film him, and I saw all the techniques he was doing, and I couldn't help but notice as he was doing them that they were sloppy. That's a generous way of saying it.
This is what I shot for King of the Cage right before Rafiel's fight. This is him hitting the pads.
Oh, wow. Oh, snap. You didn't tell me that. Look at that jump kick. He kicks, and it's like, okay, I kicked you, then it's done. There's no defense after.
Right.
Look, see how the knee's bent when he goes to armbar, not straightens out his leg?
Yeah, there's his knee bar set up.
That is the worst thing I've ever seen. He left his leg on the inside of the knee bar. That's terrible. Yeah, so we know right then.
Eddie Bravo, a commentator from King of the Cage, founder of 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, 100% legitimate black belt, and guy you probably recognize from that video about lizard people your uncle sent you, invited Torre to train with him. It didn't go well.
And Eddie rolled with him, and I remember him coming back to me, and he's like, that guy's not a black belt. And I go, well, you sure? And he goes, dude, he don't know anything. And so then he calls him up, and he was like, hey, are you a fucking black belt? Like, tell me your... The guy's like, well, you know, I'm a black belt in Japanese jiu-jitsu. He goes, stop. Are you a fucking black belt? And there's like this big pause. He's like, bro, you're a fucking liar.
Bravo confronted Torre about his experience, and to the surprise of almost no one, it turned out that his combat experience was as legitimate as Lieutenant Gorman's from Aliens.
How many drops is this for you, Lieutenant?
38, simulated.
How many combat drops?
2, including this one.
Oh man. Not only did he lie about his black belt, he shockingly wasn't a Navy SEAL, wasn't Brazilian, wasn't an underground pit fighter, his dad couldn't beat up your dad, and his name wasn't even Rafiel fucking Torre. His real name was Ralph Bartle. At this point I'm not even convinced that was his real beard. Sun Tzu once said, how are you gonna snitch on yourself? And with his embarrassment at the hands of Eddie Bravo, Torre snitched on himself by exposing his complete lack of grappling ability. Ostracized from the MMA community, exposed as a fraud in the sport he loved, and unable to work as an MMA journalist, no one ever heard from Rafiel Torre ever again. Just kidding, he murdered someone. After the MMA community filed a restraining order to keep Torre's bullshit 100 meters away from the sport at all times, he did indeed vanish, but while in exile, Torre kept himself busy by schmoozing a woman named Angelina Richards. The pair fell in love, the only roadblock being Angelina's husband, 32-year-old Brian Richards. Brian had $1 million life insurance policy that was just too tempting for Torre to leave him walking around, living and breathing, while he could be spending $1 million on fake black belt certificates and tanning beds. So in an attempt to tap out 2 opponents with one half-assed knee bar, Torre concocted a plan to murder Brian so he could collect a payday and get the girl. His first idea was to offer former MMA fighter Gerald Strebent 10 grand to kill Richards. Strebent wisely refused. Out of options, Torre invited Richards to his gym, where the fake black belt got the first legitimate win of his career by using a rear naked choke to strangle Richards to death. Torre displayed the criminal acumen of a Scooby-Doo villain by dumping the body in the bed of Richards' pickup truck, covering him with some garbage, and leaving the pickup in the middle of a supermarket parking lot. Torre would eventually be convicted of the murder in 2005 and sentenced to life in prison. Gerald Strebent's testimony helped put him in jail, but before you go thinking Strebent is the good guy here, he himself would be jailed for shooting someone dead in a road rage incident and sexually assaulting an underage student of his. Fuck, that got dark.
Don't move, you move, I'll shoot.
Fake martial arts are a dying industry. For years, bullshit enthusiasts have survived off the carcasses of Ishida Kim, Frank Dukes, and George Dillman, meals that had already been picked clean by the turn of the millennium. But much like the comeback of vinyl records or the Iron Curtain, no one could have predicted the rise of Dale Brown.
Detroit Urban Survival Training, I want to share with you right now
Some options you have that can increase your survivability if someone placed a gun to your throat, a striker-fired weapon is pinning against your chest, against the wall, or you're being carjacked, grabbing you by the throat, person with a hammer, holding a blade that has an axe.
Dale has single-handedly breathed new life into an industry long thought to have been killed off by the ascendance of martial arts that don't require a belief in magic in order to work. Brown runs Detroit Urban Survival Training, the most ironically titled group since Joy Division. Because following any of the self-defense advice posited by Detroit Urban Survival Training will guarantee you an all-expenses-paid trip to the afterlife of your choosing.
Don't move, you move up.
Snake, are you okay? Snake?
Since 1993, Brown has been teaching his Thanos-inspired method of self-defense, where it's a cast-iron guarantee that if a gun is pulled on you, employing dust training results in 50% of the participants being removed from existence. Not content with giving people advice on how to get shot dead, Dale has also mastered the art of how to get stabbed and how to get strangled.
Oh, wow. That is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Brown is certified in firearms management, private investigating, and fucking nuclear emergency management. Who is letting this man manage the next Chernobyl?
Detroit Urban Survival Training. I'm going to share with you right now what to do.
In February of 2022, the natural order was thrown into complete chaos when UFC fighter Joaquin Buckley hired Brown to corner him for his fight at UFC Vegas 48. Buckley, the star of one of 2021's most viral knockouts, claimed Dale Brown was legit. Suddenly, people everywhere were wondering, had they been wrong? Was Dale Brown really a high-level martial artist who had just trolled his way to fame, dishing out the worst combat advice since Edmund Tarverdian? No! It's far more likely that Buckley was simply trying to drive up his stock by hiring a living meme to walk out to the cage with him, and Tay Zonde wasn't available. But as tempting as it is to endlessly dunk on Brown for his self-defense methods that are borderline suicidal, Brown genuinely doesn't deserve to be listed alongside people like Dukes, Dillman or Kim. For one thing, Brown's claims of being in the military are actually legitimate. He did serve as a paratrooper. While it's unknown if he was ever in combat, the bar has been set so low by countless frauds claiming to be 5-star CIA generals of the Navy that Brown simply being able to back up his claim of military service is like clicking on a pop-up for horny singles in your area and actually finding a horny single in your area. Also, Dust have done some genuine good in their communities.
I'm telling you, if I don't get my key tonight, don't even worry about a phone call. You're gonna worry about calling the police when I shoot that bitch up tonight. My son. If you don't find that key tonight, it's crap. I'm already around the corner from the house right now. Yeah, this message.
I'm standing right there and he just looking and he like, where my son? Like, he in the room. So he punched the screen in, came in and took my baby.
Okay.
And me, my mom, and my sister, my brother, we went to the police station and made a report, and they said it's nothing, basically they were saying it's nothing they can do.
There's going to be repercussions behind that. They're going to be retaliated against.
Yeah,
so they're not going to be safe.
Right, well, we're going to come here and we're going to stay here and keep her safe.
But the child was in the custody of another young lady, and then we were able to get the child safely back to the mom without any incident whatsoever.
Residents of Detroit have even stated that they called Dust before calling the police, as they knew Dust would arrive faster. Dale Brown has done more good for Detroit than most people ever will.
For me, I was under abuse, I was being threatened, my life was being threatened. Basically, he was threatening to also take my daughter out of the country, so I had to contact threat management.
And what was threat management able to do for you?
Get my baby back.
And for that, he escapes being ranked among the more blatant frauds. But Before we let him off the hook, please remember that in a self-defense situation, there is no difference between this
Open the door! Open!
and this. And unless you have a deep desire to find out what really happens when we die, the best form of self-defense when someone pulls a gun on you has already been found.
Alright, so what I'm gonna do here, he's trying to rob you, not over here. Alright, yes, so here's what you're actually gonna do when faced with a gunman confronting you, trying to rob you. Okay, sir, here's my wallet. Okay, other pocket here, have my keys, and I got the AirPods here, purple case. Registration's in my car, you can have it. Go to my house and take whatever, my stuff you want, and we're good.
Diego Sanchez is a mixed martial artist who has been fighting since 2002. He made his first mainstream appearance on The Ultimate Fighter, TUF for short, Season 1 in 2006. TUF was the UFC's attempt to cash in on the collective insanity of the 2000s reality TV boom. And it worked. TUF Season 1 is credited with saving the UFC from bankruptcy and getting mixed martial arts into the living rooms of people who otherwise would never have watched MMA. It also made stars of its biggest personalities such as Forrest Griffin, Chris Lieben and Diego Sanchez. In the years since TUF Season 1, Diego has fought a who's who of MMA, from BJ Penn to Nick Diaz. His most recent fight was in 2022, 20 years after making his debut. If there is anything about mixed martial arts that Diego Sanchez doesn't know, it's probably not worth knowing. So why are we talking about a very legitimate fighter in a video about martial arts conmen? Because sometime around 2020, Diego Sanchez was lured into a world of make-believe martial arts, OnlyFans, and inverted insanity by the Grima Wormtongue of MMA, a lank-haired charlatan by the name of Joshua Fabia. Joshua Fabia's early life is shrouded in mystery. He was immaculately conceived sometime in the early 1980s and descended in a beam of sunlight to the United States soon after. But not much information pre-2019 is freely available about the man dubbed the worst coach in MMA. Fabia's own website is suitably vague, but does give us a prologue to the kind of fantastical chicanery to come. Fabia recounts a tale of how, as a 9-year-old, he discovered his innate healing powers after his grandfather suffered a brain aneurysm. According to his website, 9-year-old Fabia fell into the role of a physical therapist for his grandfather and worked with him to a remarkable 85% recovery. Such healing abilities were remarkable when we saw them in Doctor Strange. They're even more impressive when found in a 9-year-old. But to get a real sense of what Fabia is all about, let's listen to what he has to say about himself.
Baptized in violence and extremes, he was formed into something formless. People live through him, vicariously. People hang on his every word, even the coarse words. Even his feminine side is manly, loved more than feared. Feared by many, respected by even more. He makes lifelong connections with just a glance. He's the most interesting man in the world.
Cool. The earliest online traces of Fabia that I could find are from 2009. In a couple of forum posts on an Aikido website and on his own long-dead website jfhardcorefitness.com, Fabia is described as an instructor in the martial art called Sistema, and already this sets off more red flags than a Labor Day parade in downtown Beijing. Sistema is a Russian martial art, often conflated with Sambo, as they're both Russian and both sound vaguely similar. But Sistema is to Sambo what Mac and Me was to E.T. the extraterrestrial. From a distance it might look like a passable imitation, but up close,
What is that? What the fuck is that?
Sistema was designed as a military fighting style that would be effective in real-world combat scenarios, which is a fine idea until your martial art gets more watered down than a pub urinal on Paddy's Day and eventually devolves into this. Thanks to its initial association with the military, Sistema is a haven for soldiers of the make-believe People's Army, men who probably sleep in combat fatigue pajamas and are convinced they can stop a room full of knife-wielding attackers by gracefully sidestepping them like an air hostess avoiding an errant drinks cart. It's no wonder that Fabia, who like 90% of other fake martial artists, makes dubious, difficult to verify claims of being in the Israeli Special Forces, gravitated to Sistema as his first martial art. But once airsoft became a thing, Sistema wasn't paying the bills anymore. So in 2019, Fabia installed DLC for his own life and reinvented himself as a self-help and wellness guru. He grew his hair long, commissioned a suitably new wave-looking logo, and consecrated his online throne of lies, the School of Self-Awareness.
Don't you want devoted followers who leave their families for you, give their money to you, give their bodies to you, give up their lives for you? Don't you want to become a cult leader? Establish front groups.
We're a Bible study group.
We're a management course. We're a meditation center.
Fabia's new venture wasn't fucking around and came out hot with the bold claim that he had innovated meditation the same way Steve Jobs had innovated technology. And I guess if you're planning on starting a cult, then who better to compare yourself to than the 21st century's most socially acceptable cult leader?
Structure your cult like an onion with the most benign and helpful features on the outside and the most controlling, kooky, and evil parts at the secret inner core.
The School of Self-Awareness is a monument to lunacy. In recent years, he's tried to tone down the sheer what the fuckness of his website, but using the Internet Archive, we can see that in 2019, Fabia was wired to the fucking moon. The School of Self-Awareness does what all good cults do and lures you in with promises of things like fitness, weight loss, or building muscle, all admirable goals that 90% of us would like to achieve. But the further into School of Self you dig, the more its crazy begins to show. Fabia's one-to-one training starts with lessons in ancient wisdom, doesn't even give you time to digest that before offering lessons in magic and mystery, and before you can look around to make sure you haven't stumbled onto the fucking Hogwarts Express, he's offering to awaken your inner child and return you to a state of childlike wonder. And he's not even finished yet because holy fucking shit, Joshua Fabia offers training in space and time manipulation. Not gonna lie though, returning to a state of childlike wonder sounds a lot better than the cynical, bitter husk of a human being I am. And it's only $111 to join. Oh god, this is how he gets you!
Induce trance states and self-hypnosis by practicing thought-stopping rituals and repetitive acts like dancing.
I could end this video right now, and you'd probably be soundly convinced that Fabia is one of the biggest charlatans to walk this earth. But this story doesn't even properly begin until Joshua met Diego in 2019. Diego Sanchez was always the type of person who was going to fall for Fabia's brand of self-help shenanigans. Sanchez has a history of promoting far-out theories like alkaline water and stevia being miracle cures for everything that ails you. And his personality since the tough days has always been, well, weird.
Sanchez is doing some kind of yoga bodybuilding pose down with baby oil all over his body.
You don't want to face this in the ring.
As a person of feel, I'm not so much mentally going through my mind. I am feeling what I need to feel.
Encourage separation from their family.
Your friends and family probably won't understand.
And in 2019, Sanchez was at his lowest ebb. In the process of being divorced from his wife of 8 years, he also found himself fast approaching the end of his career and getting less and less attention from his trainers at Jackson Wink. It wasn't difficult for Fabia to squirm his way into Diego's life, offering self-help and wellness, and eventually separating him from all of his coaching staff at Jackson Wink. By February of 2020, in the lead up to his fight with Michael Chiesa, Diego had fired all his coaching staff, cornermen, nutritionists, physical therapists, basically anyone considered valuable to a fighter, and replaced them all with one man,
Joshua Fabia.
In the first of what would be many moments of undiluted insanity from the Fabia Sanchez team, Fabia spread the word backstage that he had taught Diego a move that was too deadly for the octagon. A move so infinitely lethal that they had to warn the commission that Michael Chiesa's life was in immediate danger once the cage door locked. When word got around that Diego was charging up his dim mak for the fight, the Athletic Commission was understandably concerned. They stepped into Diego's locker room to discuss the lethality of the move.
Your manager was professional enough to explain some of the techniques, but we want to clarify and confirm a couple of things. We don't want to take away from your strengths. You know, we expect you to go out there. You know, we're in the hurt business. There's no doubt about it. You know, I don't have to tell you you've been in forever, but I want
I just want to touch base real quick because he brought up, but can you turn it off?
And while the interview cuts off before they get to discussing it, Michael Chiesa himself saw the move and described it as looking like, quote, a reverse Stone Cold Stunner, and that he and his team had all gotten a really good laugh out of it. Chiesa also reported other weirdness from backstage, such as Fabia burning sage and incense in the locker room, and that, unsurprisingly, Diego's backstage routine seemed more like the warm-up for a mindfulness meditation session than a mixed martial arts fight. Once the Athletic Commission had cleared up whether or not Diego was actually intending on killing Chiesa, the fight was cleared to go ahead.
Make up stories about yourself to boost your importance.
I invented air. I have special access to the aliens.
I'm working with two magics.
If Sanchez v Chiesa was intended as a showcase of all the reawakened inner children, ancient wisdom, and stone cold stunners Diego had learned from Fabia, then it was probably the worst debut since the Shockmaster.
Shockmaster! Alright! The Shockmaster!
I told you. Oh, God.
Chiesa mauled Sanchez for 3 rounds to win a completely lopsided decision. He said Diego was doing weird stuff all throughout the fight, at one point even performing what's known in grappling as an oil check, and in everyday life as an unsolicited prostate exam.
His fingers touched my butthole, and I yelled at him, like, get your fingers out of my ass, motherfucker.
Though this wasn't exactly a surprise given Fabia's teaching methods.
So now it's done. You understand? It's done. Because I have the balls in his throat. Okay, pretty simple. Balls in throat.
Pre-fight, Fabia had been a relatively unknown kook. Post-fight, his meme stocks exploded, even more so after Joe Rogan discussed him in pretty unflattering terms on his podcast.
Oh, this is his coach? This is the voodoo coach that would be Diego Sanchez's corner. No one else. This dude has no experience as an MMA coach, by the way. So this is the dude that's telling him to be like Tyson.
He's being like water right now. You see that slip? That slip?
Bro.
Oh.
Well,
touch butt.
Something that would infuriate Fabia and cause him to single out Joe in almost every interview he gave afterwards.
And on top of it, the criticism truly starts from Joe Rogan's dumbass talking out of turn, slandering somebody.
Control their behavior. Come live with us.
Wear these clothes.
More and more bizarre training footage began to emerge, such as Fabia chasing fighters around the octagon with a real knife. Embarrassing losses and word salad corner advice would be the norm for Diego and Fabia's entire UFC run together. Across 3 fights, Diego looked worse with each performance, his sole win coming by way of disqualification after he received an illegal knee. While Fabia's cornering got more esoteric than the Tao Te Ching, Joshua offered nuggets of advice such as think of the shadow, V-drill, I need that Tyson, and crack the coconut.
that's what you call non-advice.
While most corners will use code to disguise what they're asking their fighter to do, Fabia's instructions were so bizarre that everyone who heard them was unsure if it was corner advice or free association slam poetry. By September 2020, and yet another loss for Diego, this time to Jake Matthews, Fabia had become a walking punchline in the MMA community. It seemed like the only man who couldn't see through his bullshit was Diego. In an effort to repair their image, Diego and Fabia went on a public relations blitz and appeared on more podcasts than Brendan Schaub does in an average afternoon.
Dicey!
But while Fabia could curate his image of being a cross between Jesus Christ and Mr. Miyagi well enough when he was doing it in pre-recorded, scripted videos, once Fabia got behind a live microphone, shit got wild.
There's no white chickens in nature, bro. Because I'm 20 years old and I know how to finger fuck the computer. You know, like a fake fight. Come on. To a special needs kid. Like, you want to watch my fighter's dick. So this is Disney now. Titillation and violence. Boom. And sway in the angle to flop the flip. You ever seen a little monkey?
Joshua Fabia.
And this is the epidemic we have where there's more medications than there are people.
Might be interesting, Joe Rogan talking that shit about me saying 100. 100? You're a motherfucker. But mic me up and clown me out on what I'm saying. Wow, I'm in the fucking news. Joshua Fabia looked like an amazing coach. And now we're gonna get into this astroturfing shit of the internet.
People hang on his every word.
Maybe you should ask me what the fuck it means, asshole.
Even the coarse word.
Tell them that there is a part of their mind they must eliminate in order to find happiness.
You must eliminate the toxic mind.
Your ego is the source of all your problems.
I strip off all the extra, leaving your essence, which was perfect from the time you were born.
Fabia appeared in an interview with MMA Junkie's John Morgan, where he proceeded to rant for almost 40 minutes. This interview is interesting, not just because of Fabia's diatribes against big tech,
and controlling analytics, and making it so the verifiable footage of me and the jaw-dropping action you don't get to see. Our lawyers will be getting back to us with the end of our cyber investigation.
Joe Rogan.
Because there's Joe Rogan's footage the first thing when you put my name in YouTube.
And basically anyone who isn't him. But we get to see some of the subtle ways Fabia controls Diego during the interview. Fabia tries to exert control over Diego in much the same way an overbearing mother would control a meek son. Fabia literally holds Diego's hand at the start of the interview. He adjusts Diego's microphone for him, despite there being no actual need to, which is a really subtle way of saying, "You're doing this wrong, let me fix it for you." He shushes Diego in a couple of different ways during the interview too, either by outright talking over him,
We're in the thousands. Might be interesting, Joe Rogan talking that shit about.
Or when he wants Diego to stop talking, he places his hand on Diego's wrist and holds it down.
And perform on that night.
Well, and hold on. If you have kids. No, hold on. He's seen me walk around.
This would be uncomfortable to watch in a married couple, in a fighter and his coach. It's downright sinister. One of the topics to come up was that of Fabia's credentials, what specifically made him qualified to corner a fighter in a mixed martial arts contest. Fabia gave the greatest excuse since the invention of "the dog ate my homework."
So again, let's just go back into this credential world. You come from a world where you lay down your respect because of a piece of paper, because of a past accomplishment that the person is riding on a horse into your fucking space. And you've been conditioned to do this, and this is why you chase pieces of paper. I'm in a different world, and I do not endorse killing trees to endorse yourself.
While Fabia seems to think that he was somehow repairing his battered image with each one of these appearances, in the eyes of any rational being, Fabia was sounding crazier with every interview. These interviews are genuinely difficult to sit through, not only because Fabia goes on hour-long stream of consciousness rants that were more like a cross between a TED Talk and a sermon, but he's constantly combative, hostile and obnoxious, to even the most innocuous of questions. He just comes across like a really, I don't know, I can't think of a good description. Elden Ring, help me out here.
A loathsome dung eater.
Perfect.
Indoctrinate with fear. Tell them that they could be possessed by evil spirits, or suggest that if they should ever leave, something bad could happen to them.
And to be honest with you, I'm gonna tell you guys both frankly right now, I'm fearful, man. I'm fearful for my motherfucking life. I'm fearful that this company, this billion-dollar monopoly company worldwide is gonna come after me.
Around about this time, Diego and Fabia embarked on their latest money-making venture, OnlyFans. I probably don't have to explain this to you, but OnlyFans is a site where attractive women sell pictures of their feet. Diego was led to believe that the OnlyFans content was essentially behind-the-scenes training footage.
It's not a sexual thing, it's a non-sexual. It's real content, it's all my behind-the-scenes content, and these are real fans, real people.
But Fabia had taken control of all Diego's social media by this point and was running his Twitter and Instagram as sock puppet accounts for the School of Self-Awareness. He was also running the OnlyFans account, and I'm not sure what kind of training footage this was. Maybe a butt drag instructional video? Well, that could be sparring footage. Maybe they own a cat? Maybe they're While I haven't seen it, as I'm not signing up to OnlyFans unless Valentina Shevchenko joins it. The content was simply training footage that Fabia tried to spice up with some salacious descriptions. But the OnlyFans account stirred up so many rumours that Diego had to go on record as stating that he and Fabia weren't in an intimate relationship. In May of 2021, Diego was scheduled for his final walk to the octagon. After one of the longest careers in MMA and being a perennial fan favourite, his retirement bout would see him face Donald Cowboy Cerrone. But Fabia had to go and Fabia it all up.
Together, we're gonna
Diego was being interviewed by Paul Felder and Megan Levy when Fabia, who can't not be the centre of attention, barged into the room like the Kool-Aid man with a god complex.
Hey, real quick guys, just because you don't know who the hell I am and you guys have heard a lot of shit talk and all the good stuff, let's just cut the bullshit on the commentating, no low blows on this guy, no...
As soon as Fabia enters the room, Diego's demeanour changes. He constantly looks down, hands folded in front of him, like a child being scolded. Fabia proceeds to go on yet another street corner lunatic rant about how unfairly he is being treated in the media and by the UFC's commentary team.
Go to Google, go to YouTube, and just, real quick, put in my name and then see what's going on with the slander.
I've seen it.
Okay, so you've seen
They're
it.
They're all well aware of it.
Oh, so if you're well aware, why are we acting like this didn't happen?
Levy and Felder handled the interruption perfectly, with Levy pointing out that Fabia is making Diego's retirement all about him.
Why are you talking?
This is not about you. This is Diego's fighter meeting.
You guys are like the tough guys and all this stuff. If nobody's gonna...
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
I will never understand how no one pointed out that the reason the media was treating him unfairly was because he came across like Charles Manson at a yoga seminar, but maybe Felder and Levy are just better people than I am. But Fabia wasn't done getting his stench all over Diego's retirement. In an attempt to play five-dimensional chess with the UFC, Fabia requested Diego's entire medical history from the UFC's medical department. He had been railing about the long-term effects of fighting for a while and was possibly gearing up to sue the UFC, whether he was really concerned about CTE or whether he saw the UFC and Joe Rogan as being instrumental in the public slandering of his name and just wanted some revenge is up for debate. But the end result was that the UFC, in one of the rare moments that made them look like the good guys, were now wary that Diego was having cognitive issues.
But more importantly, the direct quote that I received was, you stated that the quote, long-term effects of Diego being an MMA fighter were your basis for requesting it. Yeah. So I went through this with Mark Hunt, and here's the reality. If you're concerned or he's concerned that he's having negative effects, then we're not going to fight him. and I'm going to pull the fight right now, and we're going to call it a day, and we'll release him, and he can go do something else with his life, because I'm not putting anybody in that cage that doesn't feel 100%.
They cancelled Diego's retirement bout and released him from the UFC. After a 17-year career, Diego left the UFC not of his own volition, but thanks to the lunk-headed machinations of a greasy-haired bargain basement Jim Jones. Fabia and Diego's relationship would limp onwards, with Fabia posting under the guise of Diego's Instagram that he was free at last, and tagging multiple other MMA promotions in the post. But the straw that broke the charlatan's back came not long after, when training footage surfaced that would look ridiculous if you saw it in Karate Kid 5 LaRusso in space. The first footage to leak was of a blindfolded Diego in a boxing ring being whipped with a belt. So far, so Fabia. But when the rest of the tape leaked, it showed Diego hanging upside down, getting punched and kicked by Fabia in what was alleged to be a body conditioning session, but looked more like a Cenobite training video. For a man who was so concerned about CTE, Fabia seemed to have no problem repeatedly punching a defenseless Diego in the head. The tsunami of criticism from fighters and fans alike that followed the release of the video seemed to finally drive a wedge between Fabia and Sanchez. By May of 2021, Sanchez confirmed the parasite known as Joshua Fabia had finally been removed from his life. But while Diego was done with Fabia, Fabia wasn't done with him. Joshua was determined to prove to the world that no matter how low their opinion of him was, it could always go that much lower. In an attempt to shift blame for Diego's mental health away from him, he leaked extremely private emails Diego's wife had sent to the UFC in 2018 before he had met Fabia about her concerns about Diego's state of mind. He aired any and all of Diego's dirty laundry that he could find, claiming that he had been sexually abused and that he was an addict and that Fabia was his sponsor. But had Fabia known anything about 12-step programs, he would know that in order to be a sponsor, you must first be a recovering addict. So either Fabia just played himself and exposed that he too is a recovering addict, or he was just proving that he is a spiteful, 5'2", gilt-edged, shit-munching troglodyte. If you've ever been in a true state of despair, whether it be due to the loss of a loved one or turmoil like divorce, the kind of stress where you have trouble sleeping but even more trouble getting out of bed, you'll know there comes a point where you just wish someone could come along and just fix it for you. It's not difficult to see how Fabia took advantage of Diego's vulnerability at a time when all he really needed was support, not the poisonous words of a charisma-free David Koresh fanboy. But to end on a positive note, since his emancipation, Diego has remained Fabia free and has returned to fighting. Most recently, he fought under the Eagle FC promotion against Kevin Lee. And while he didn't win, at almost 40 years of age, fighting a 29-year-old, he put on his best performance since 2019. As for Fabia, he was last seen being launched out of Rohan by Gandalf the White and hasn't been heard from since.
A good con man takes a little bit of truth and a lot of lies and pulls the wool over the eyes of the ignorant.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got into this situation, barreling towards a middle-aged woman like the bastard offspring of Sonic the Hedgehog and the boulder from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Well, it all started when I joined a little-known cult called Yellow Bamboo. One of the most frequently asked questions I've gotten since my first video on fake martial arts is, what the hell is with that guy flatlining an elderly woman and then faking a heart attack to get out of it? That clip is from a documentary called 3 Miles North of Malcolm, and at the risk of turning this martial arts video into a movie review, I'm about to review this movie because holy shit, this is the greatest thing I have ever seen. This is my generation's Citizen Kane. 3 Miles North of Malcolm follows the journey of a group of disparate weirdos who have found themselves in the forests of Sweden at a festival called Angsbacka. Think of Angsbacka like Comic-Con but for cults. There are 100 different flavours of crazy on display, and our protagonists get to sample each one. The group consists of various oddballs, most notably Siddhartha, the guy who desperately wants to be seen as the wise and benevolent group leader, but is mostly hated by everyone because he's deeply weird and very obviously desperate to get into the pants of every woman he meets.
I would like to have some massage.
Peter, a man whose marriage is falling apart, but instead of going to counselling, went to find himself in the real-world inspiration for the Windmill Village in Elden Ring. Luce, who at one point in this movie genuinely seems to become sexually attracted to a tree, and Nick. Nick is the star of this film. Nick is a down-to-earth rugby coach who appears to have walked through a magic wardrobe and emerged on the other side in the middle of a maelstrom of literal tree-hugging, bongo-tapping, group-hugging insanity.
I had a friend living in Norway. She suggested coming across, and from that she said, do you want to go to Sweden for this festival for a week? Not knowing it was literally a bunch of tree-hugging. They just have all come here to sing and chant and be one with something, and I hate it. And I'm stuck here for a week now.
Nick is the only skeptic in this entire live-action recreation of Midsummer.
I've gone out into the forests of Sweden, and there's a big tent, and there's all these people in white, and they're dancing around and chanting and stuff. I've gone, holy shit, it's a cult.
And he makes it known in no uncertain terms that he is simply not down with any of this hippie bullshit.
It was the biggest pile of shit I've ever heard. I mean, I've heard a lot of shit in my life, but that was tops. Just, I love your despair and I love your pains. What if you actually don't have despair? What if you like want to go up to someone and say, you're happy and that's cool? Like, well done, good luck with all that. All these fucking tree huggers.
And look, I don't want to shame anyone's lifestyle here. If this is what you like to do on your time off, then I'm not trying to take it away from you, and I hope with all my heart that it genuinely makes you happy. But there's no denying that these people are all fucking weird. About an hour into the movie, we're introduced to the world of Yellow Bamboo. Yellow Bamboo is the martial arts equivalent of mime. In order for it to work, you need a robust imagination and a willingness to look professionally moronic. Originating in Bali, Yellow Bamboo was founded in 1987 and first made an appearance online around 2003. And if you thought Joshua Fabia's claims of manipulating space and time were outlandish, Yellow Bamboo makes Fabia seem positively grounded. Right off the bat, Yellow Bamboo's website tells us that it is an official magic, not like any of that unlicensed knockoff magic shit. To prove it, here we see a Yellow Bamboo practitioner levitating with the kind of ease that would make Ashita Kim dim Mac himself in a jealous rage. With Yellow Bamboo, you can learn how to control the entire universe, knock down attackers from 10 feet away, and heal the dying. I'm not sure why they led with universal control and then followed up with knocking a guy over, as that seems pretty small stakes once you've attained galactic dominance. And this isn't even me exaggerating for comic effect. Yellow Bamboo's website legitimately claims it can help you attain godhood. If the idea of being a literal god appeals to you, you'll be relieved to hear the initiation ceremony is a relatively straightforward affair. By the light of a full moon, you simply open the top of your head and feel the white light power of the universe flood your body. Also, you need to eat 4 different types of rice.
Okay everyone, this is how you set up the rice and the water for the initiation ceremony. On the top you have white rice, to the right you have yellow rice, at the bottom you have brown rice, on the left you have black rice, and in the middle you have it all mixed up.
So basically, if you've ever been to an Indonesian restaurant, congratulations, you're at least a level 2 Yellow Bamboo master already. Thankfully, they also have a warning letting us know we should only learn Yellow Bamboo from a licensed instructor, because God knows learning levitation and Hadoukens from a charlatan could be really dangerous.
Disturbing news reaching us from Bali, Indonesia today, where an unlicensed Yellow Bamboo practitioner inadvertently caused the death of at least 8 students. Witnesses say the instructor appeared to harness a dangerous amount of chi energy, which upon release sent a shockwave of forced lightning crashing into everyone within range. Until the results of the post-mortem are released, it is still unclear as to whether any of the students had one toe pointing up and one pointing down, also known as the Dillman defense. Please be warned that this footage contains scenes of a distressing nature, and you may want to have underage children leave the room.
Ya, serang!
Yellow Bamboo practitioners were infamous for antagonizing other martial arts communities in the early days of the internet, claiming they could use their chi powers to knock out any attacker, regardless of their fighting style. This led to a now infamous showdown between the inhabitants of Fantasia and people who choose to live in the real world. A Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner took his life in his hands by running head first towards the deadly palms of a fully chi-energized Yellow Bamboo master. Yellow Bamboo made a couple of wild claims as to why their guy was mangled like Tito Ortiz mangling grammar and sentence structure.
I'm only 43 years old. I'm an old mature. I matured old. Very fast, but at the same time, my body hasn't matured great.
They claimed that their representative failed to knock out the jiu-jitsu guy because he was only level 1, and no-touch knockouts are only available to unlock at level 5. This guy spent all his XP unlocking the Yellow Bamboo skin for his character, instead of the no-touch knockout ability. They would later completely contradict themselves when they stated in black and white that you can learn a no-touch knockout in only 5 days. So I'm guessing it's 1 day of training per level, and it was this guy's first day on the job. They also claimed that the jiu-jitsu practitioner wasn't truly trying to hurt him, and no-touch chi explosions are like tactical nukes, a last-ditch option only to be used in the gravest of circumstances.
They're losers.
This is the interview that had most of Australia talking today. Canadian magician James Randi has written a number of books claiming people who profess to have supernatural powers, such as spoonbender Uri Geller and medium Doris Stokes, are nothing more than magicians themselves.
You go against a lady like Doris Stokes, who never harmed anybody in her whole life, and you call her a charlatan and a fake?
You know a great deal about it.
Yes, I do. You said that she was a liar on the radio. You called her a liar.
No.
And that woman wouldn't lie to anybody. And I don't know whether she's right or wrong, but she wouldn't lie to anybody. And we're going for a commercial break, and you can... We'll be back with Diana Trapp.
This is James Randi. Randi is a former stage magician turned psychic and paranormal debunker. He founded the James Randi Educational Foundation in 1996, with its purpose being to promote critical thinking and investigate claims of the paranormal, pseudoscientific, and supernatural. The JREF offered up a prize of $1 million to anyone who could prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, in fully controlled circumstances, that they had psychic, supernatural, or paranormal abilities. In 2003, Yellow Bamboo claimed that prize. According to them, they had used their no-touch knockout successfully against a representative of Randy's, but like everything with Yellow Bamboo, their claims were more outlandish than the prospect of Brendan Schaub getting another stand-up special. Their verifiable video evidence was filmed at night, using a potato, in an area with worse lighting than the last episode of Game of Thrones. Every person who has seen the footage said it's next to impossible to tell what's actually happening. Yellow Bamboo said they had done enough to pass the initial stage of the test and claim the $1 million, but Randy rightly pointed out that the test wasn't performed under the required conditions, and that Jocko Tree, the man allegedly blasted into the nether realm by chi energy, had invalidated the test before it had even begun by conducting it outside of the agreed conditions. Yellow Bamboo's representative who witnessed the alleged Hadouken was a man named Dr. Alvin G. Donovan III, a name that crops up frequently in Yellow Bamboo literature. Alvin is also the guy who shows you how to prepare your side dishes for the initiation ceremony and has recorded, and I shit you not, a 5-hour-long video of unfettered insanity.
Pull that energy out from the universe and explode!
I wouldn't recommend watching any of this, but it's a guarantee that should you desire to, you can dip into it at any point during its Avengers Endgame level runtime and be greeted with absolute fucking chaos. From exploding fire fists to healing the sick by breathing on them, this video is the worst thing ever uploaded to YouTube, and that's saying something.
Oh, wow. That is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Dr. Alvin is pretty much the Don Corleone of the Yellow Bamboo bullshit family. It's worth pointing out that in 2012, Dr. Alvin was the subject of a Sydney Morning Herald investigation into alleged hedge fund fraud. Alvin allegedly took thousands from aspiring investors and then disappeared, leaving them without a single cent of a return on their investments. So, Robert S., to answer your question, LOL, what was happening at 51:52? That lady got knocked TF out, and everyone started looking like they were tripping balls. What happened was, a grown man who believes in magic but doesn't believe in barbers reenacted the A-Train scene from The Boys with a middle-aged woman who comes across as just desperately sad and looking for anything to latch onto that would give her life some meaning. So Ponytail Man gives her all the meaning she can handle by absolutely fucking obliterating her. Upon hearing her howls of agony and realizing that maybe this charade has gone a bit too far, he fakes a chi-induced seizure before trying to blame everyone who isn't him for an attempted murder.
Where were you guys? Where the fuck were you guys?
It's also worth noting that this ponytailed dipshit gets chi blasted into a thrashing heap whenever he tries it on any of the men in the group. Yellow Bamboo has toned down their advocacy for using Hadoukens to short-circuit attackers' brains in recent years. Their website is more down to earth nowadays, or at least it's in a low Earth orbit, as they still claim to be white magic, but the photos of levitation and the videos of invisible death rays have since been removed. Nevertheless, Yellow Bamboo is dangerous, and not just because of their Pam-powered death cannons. Make no mistake, they are a cult, maybe not of the Branch Davidian tier, but their teachings are weapons-grade balonium, to the point where even till this day on their website, They still peddle the video which shows Dr. Alvin claiming that you can cure whatever ails you by rubbing your stomach 11 times while chanting some shit about rice. This is the kind of dangerous woo-woo that invariably leads to tragedy when someone tries to cure what turns out to be stomach cancer by eating 4 different types of rice instead of seeking medical attention. James Randi himself said that even the smartest among us aren't immune from con men. On some level, there will always be someone trying to convince you of their beliefs or take your money. From George C. Parker selling the Brooklyn Bridge to gullible immigrants, to the modern-day grifter's weapon of choice, the catfishing Facebook profile. As long as you have something someone else covets, you will always be the target for someone trying to pull the wool over your eyes, from con men to cult leaders. But this is the only cult leader any of us should be listening to, and even they're an acquired taste.